Hey Faith Family, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast at Calvary Bible, where we go beyond the Sunday sermon to explore some rabbit holes and to bring some biblical truths to the surface. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Randy, welcome back.
We are back.
We're back and better than ever.
I think we're rusty.
Probably rusty.
Let me speak for myself.
No, you're speaking for me too. I do have a joke though.
Okay, so you're not rusty at all. You're right.
Well, we'll see. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
What's a pastor's favorite dessert?
This pastor's favorite is ice cream.
Randy. Okay, folks, I gave him this exact same riddle like 4 months ago, and you didn't get it then.
No.
I told you the answer, though, so he forgot it.
I'm the worst at jokes.
All right, so you ready? Here's the hint.
Yeah.
You're close, actually, with ice cream.
Yeah.
But let's think about a pastor and
pasteurization.
Another term, another way, a form of getting your ice cream. If you're at a restaurant, it's not like a flavor. It's a... No.
A la mode.
No. It's a day of the week. It's as clear as I can get.
And a Sunday.
A Sunday. Ding, 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 ding. There you go.
I'm the world's worst. I told you.
Okay.
I don't do jokes. I don't listen to them.
He doesn't remember them.
I don't remember them.
It's all good.
They're fun.
It's all good.
They're usually bad.
They are bad. I've got some other bad ones stored up. So listen.
Up on Sundays.
We are really glad to be back at this. So first, thanks to Jordan.
For sure.
Sittler and Ray Newland for helping us.
And you.
And I plugged away a little bit myself. But listen, the people, they just kept, harping. When are we going to have that pod? Actually, they gave up. I think after like 2 months, people were like,
they're done.
Tired of getting the same answer. But finally figured it out. Couple of things had to fall into place, and hey, here we are.
Yeah. New camera, new mics, and all that. Hopefully it's working.
Yes.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, we will. So what I'd like to do today here is not go all the way back to where we left off, because it's been a while. We've been through Advent.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think the last time we recorded a podcast, it was like I was preaching in Matthew,
the end of Matthew's gospel. The end of
Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, you covered the end of the Mount.
Yeah,
Sermon
that's
on the Mount.
right. Yep. So that was, I believe, the last time. But what I would like to do is do a little bit of recap in the Psalms, and then get us kind of up to speed. I don't know when this one's gonna get posted. This episode. So whether it's this current week or whether it's at the early next week. Hopefully this just helps get us back up to speed a little bit.
Yeah.
So are you ready?
All set.
Question number 1, going back to Psalm 1. Psalm 1, you covered Psalm 1 and 2 again, because those two Psalms set the pace for the rest of the Psalms. And so I think that was helpful. And one question that came in, actually before I read it, let me just say this. We did get a handful of questions in the months we've been off, and I would like to get to them. But this one in particular, I think, is helpful because it sets the Psalms up here as we dive back in. So, Psalm 1, let me see here. You made the statement that Jesus was the blessed man of Psalm 1, the most blessed man that ever lived. Can you elaborate on that, as I've never viewed Christ in terms of being a blessed or happy, the happiest man? And the reason being is because Isaiah 53 paints him as being a suffering servant, grief stricken, all of the torment of the cross. So how can someone say that Jesus is the blessed man of Psalm 1 when we know the life he lived?
Yeah, it's a good place for us to start to recap the Psalms and to think about the Psalms usually portraying for us prayers that Jesus was speaking by himself. So, but in Psalm 1, where it's an introduction to the Psalter, what you have is a description of him first. And so he's blessed not because his life is only experiencing good circumstances. He's blessed because of his relationship with God. In other words, in the Psalm 1, there's only two kinds of people. There's the righteous and the wicked.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the most righteous. So if you'd like to go there, probably that's the most obvious way to point to Christ, is to say of all the righteous people,
yeah.
for the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish, is the way Psalm 1 ends. So I would say first, Jesus is that blessed man because he is the one that he lived the life being described in the opening of the psalm like no one else did. Yeah. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night, and so forth. Yep. So he's blessed not because he only has happy circumstances. Mm-hmm. He's blessed because of his relationship with God, and so everything about his life flourished, especially the suffering and his death, which provides, as I'll say tonight to the faith family at the prayer time, the death accomplishes propitiation for us for our sins. And so, you talk about being blessed of God. He is empowered by God, for instance, to accomplish God's will. And in this case, it's redemption for all the righteous. So
yes, you just said in his crucifixion, in his death, it flourished. So I think I know where you're going there, but I don't think we would consider that blessed,
right?
So why are you saying that?
Well, I'm saying it because of what it accomplished. In other words, here's Jesus being, first of all, the most God-fearing person that's ever walked the earth. Mm-hmm. He's the most righteous person that's ever walked the earth. So he is the epitome of this blessed person who lives like this, walks not, but his delight is in, that kind of stuff. Most of you you're probably familiar with Psalm 1. And so he is the most blessed man.
Yeah. Is it safe to say that the blessedness of Psalm 1 is not directly tied to the circumstances that you might find yourself in, the happiness of that? Like we can have a joy despite the circumstances.
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole point, remember, the reason why Psalm 1 is important is because Psalm 1 is the introduction to the Psalter, which means that these two kinds of people are going to experience all of the joys and the sorrows, and so all of the prayers that come out in the Psalms, those prayers are often generated by terrible circumstances. So you've got righteous people praying these prayers. So no, blessed does not mean only great circumstances.
Right.
It means that you are accomplishing the will of God. God is walking with you and you're flourishing. And so, if you happen to be one that's going through difficulties today, for instance, make sure that you believe verse 6, the Lord knows your way. He knows your way because you're righteous. You're righteous because of your relationship with him. So the hardship that you're facing is still a part of your redemption. So, yeah.
And may I add that the Psalm, so we've been teaching this Sacred Scriptures class for the Next Level and Foundations.
That's right.
And the Psalms in the Hebrew ordering of the Bible was the first book in the third part of the Old Testament. And so a Christ-centered way to read the Psalms is to see Psalm 1 as pointing us forward to Jesus, as the fulfillment of, like you just said, this psalm, the most blessed man.
Yeah.
They're waiting for him to come, and he fulfills that more than anyone else.
Yes, he does.
Ever did.
Yes, he does.
So there.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Psalm 1.
Psalm 1. I don't remember what psalm this next question is from, but I heard it. You said you heard it. The question, the vowels in the morning. Scrolling through my my digital Bible here. So the question essentially was, the psalm ends something to the effect of, I make my vows to you in the morning. Where I think the way that, I don't want to say it rubbed people the wrong way, or the question that was flagged in people's mind, say that, was, Wow. The challenge was, are we vowing things to the Lord? And the question in my heart is, how can I have confidence to make any kind of a vow as a fallen person who, man, I don't plan on sinning or breaking a vow today, and I hope I don't, but I will. So I don't want to I don't want to make a promise that I don't know I can keep.
So where does that leave you? If you're not going to make a promise, do you think you're off the hook by not promising? And God says, oh yeah, he's okay. He didn't make a promise. So he really, I can't really hold him to anything because he didn't make the promise.
Yeah.
I'm only playing with you. I'm not.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not.
No,
I'm just
no.
saying.
That's great. That's great.
What would God say to it?
Yeah.
I would say to him, Lord, I didn't make a promise to you, so I'm not accountable for anything.
Yeah.
And he would say, you be God. I'll let you do it. It's more fun being God than being the idiot.
I'm happy being the idiot. What would God say?
Yeah, what would he say?
Yeah, I think if I was in his shoes, I think I'd say, just make the promise anyway. How's that?
It's good.
Is it okay?
Who knows what it'd be like? What God would say, really? I mean, we're just But I heard the comment too, and I appreciate I appreciate the folks that were raising the question. The hesitancy to make a vow because you won't keep it is going to lead you to it will lead you to less of a commitment than you really want to make. There's a reason why the Old Testament Psalm includes this vow. It's in Psalm 61. If you were looking for it,
I just found it.
It comes in two places. So, verse 5: "For you, O God, have heard my vows," and then at the end is the promise. "So will I ever sing praises to your name as I perform my vows day after day."
Yeah.
The reason why that's the prayer has that in it is because that's describing people that are so intense in their worship experience that they know that when they go to worship God, they owe him their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no shying away from the vow because they're unsure they can keep it.
Yeah.
They're not shying away from it. So for you to shy away from a vow because of your self-knowledge of yourself is actually discounting what God is doing in your heart and the new creation that he's creating. So yes, you want to make your vows. You want to promise God. If we used other language, how about if we did this? Let me see if I can remember it. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you
offer your bodies as
present your bodies a living sacrifice to God, holy and acceptable, right?
Yep.
Because it's your reasonable
act of worship.
Yeah. So a lot of us are familiar with the language coming in the New Testament. Romans 12 is what I was trying to quote.
Yep.
So
it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. I mean, this is a pretty good verse, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's God saying, present your body a living sacrifice. The old theologians and preachers that I remember hearing as a kid would say, the problem with putting a living sacrifice on the altar is, do you remember how that goes? Did you ever hear that one?
A walk off?
Yeah, is that it just gets up and walks off. So you can imagine a person saying in the New Testament, well, I'm not going to obey Romans 12:1 because I know my heart, I'm going to put myself on the altar, but I'm going to walk off again. Yeah. Well, God knows that.
Yeah, I think
he knows that.
I do. I think the hesitancy is the formality of the vow. Like, God, today I promise that I will not love money today.
Yes.
Like how formal are these promises that we're making to God?
Yeah.
Because I think if you were to ask someone, do you promise to offer God your body as a living sacrifice today? Yeah, like I want to do that as my spiritual act of worship.
Yeah.
I want to offer that to him.
Yeah.
And so I think when we say promise or vow, we think like God, today I promise you this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's much of a difference, but there's a difference in the way that we might verbalize it. One seems more formal, like contractual maybe than the other.
Which is why I would say do it.
To make it contractual.
Oh my, yes.
And sign your name on the dotted line.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
Sure I would. Because my question is to myself and anyone else, if you don't verbalize to God with this intentional, I am going to not love money today, I think what you're thinking is that you'll just sort of live that out automatically.
Yeah.
You hope that that's a part of your walk with the Lord, but why would you think that?
Why would I think what?
Why would you think that you would automatically do it without the vow?
Because the Lord's been doing a work in my life, and
good.
You know.
And how do you feel about money and Him?
I want to not love money, and I want to love Him.
I think that's why you don't want to discount the vow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're already aware of the work of God in your life, and so what's the risk in promising it? What
kind of vows do you think David is making here? Any idea of what kind of vows he made?
You know, you look through the Old Testament and you try to find specifics like that, and you might maybe think of some of the offerings that are going to be presented, something along those lines.
Yeah, because I think then, like, at least here's how my very black and white mind goes.
Sure.
Okay, well, I'm gonna vow to God every morning or every day, and I don't even, does it say every day?
Mm-hmm. Day after day.
Yeah, but like not. He says performing my vows. Like I made a vow to my wife on our marriage day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't restate those things every day.
Mm-hmm.
So are you arguing for that we should be making these promises to God daily, or just promising God, offering, let's just use that love of money. God, I am not going to love money more than you.
So let's use an example of, let's say that a person listening, that you're listening and you have a tendency to love money more than God, to trust in money and wealth more than God, then it's even more important for that person to make the vow.
Every day.
Oh,
or as regularly as you need to. Sure.
Yeah, I think this is the type of thing where, you've made the vow and you're going to, or and there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, obviously the person gets to a point where in the middle of their day, all of a sudden they're hit with temptation about money and trusting it. What do they do in that moment? The best thing they could do in that moment is
repeat that vow.
Yeah.
Renew their vow. Renew the vow. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. So I guess the rub is, for me anyway, and I think maybe in the minds of others, is it feels legalistic if I'm going to make a vow all the time about everything. So not just the love of money, but let's just say it's the love of, so every day, the way I'm hearing you say, Jonathan, start every day by promising God that you won't love money, that you won't think a lustful thought, that you won't get angry, that you won't, suffer despair or have a doubt, or and like an innumerable amount of things that if I don't start my day that way, I'm not doing this right. And I don't think that's what you're saying.
No, what I would start with the most general observation from the Psalm, and the thing that we learned from the Psalm. And remember where the pushback is coming from. It's coming from a person who says, I probably shouldn't promise God something that I can't keep. And I'm going to say the opposite to that person. You should be promising God your sanctification. You should be putting sin to death. I mean, we can use other language, but I would be turning that around and saying, oh, wait a minute, you're rationalizing. What you're really saying to God is, this text doesn't apply to you because of your corruptness. And I'm going to say, no, this text does apply to you because you're a worshiper. So I want to. I don't want to stray away from the rub, as you've used that term. When the person came to me and said, "Wow, I don't know if I should I make a vow that I know I'm not going to keep?" What do you mean you're not going to keep it?
Yeah,
of course you are.
Right.
Why in the world aren't you going to keep your vow?
Yeah, because
I know that answer is because I'm a sinner and I'm going to fall. Well, when you do, guess what? Evidently. David of all people, I don't know if he's even the one. This was one of David's. Um, David, of all people, knows what it means to be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not perfect in his vow
sure.
keeping.
No.
Certainly in his case. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think the most clarifying thing or helpful thing there that you said was, don't view this psalm as if it doesn't apply to you because you're a sinner. It applies to you because you're a sinner.
Yeah, and because you're a saint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Yeah. I would say too, just in general, when you wake up in the morning, this is the way I've been trying to put these psalms into practice beyond Sunday, is to be thinking more along, what do I say to God in the morning? What I want to say to him in the morning is, you've bought me, paid for me. I am offering myself as a living sacrifice. Now that could lead into all kinds of vow keeping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
So last one that'll at least catch us up. And like I said, we may go back in a future episode here to some of the questions, but this is one that came to my mind this past week, Psalm 67.
67?
Yep. Okay. Verse 6. The question you said, how do we know when the Lord's blessing? And you said, look out at all the fields, right? The earth has yielded its increase. God, our God, shall bless us. So if I understood you correctly, it was, man, we know God's blessing when we see it in the fields. What happens when it's not a good crop?
Yeah, you're going to love this answer.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you're going to need a different psalm.
Okay, yeah. Go.
You're just going to need a different psalm.
Oh, okay.
So remember,
this is one angle of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's a great question, because and if you remember correctly, and I know you listen really well. I know you try. And you had a busy weekend. I said, I realized that there are desert-like places. There are deserts, and there are desert-like places. But the rationale of this psalm is get confidence of the future, gain confidence about the future blessing of God because of the way God has created the earth. So he's not talking about pockets of drought. He's actually talking about you've got a world that can build. You've got a world that can create tremendous harvests to feed humans and animals. So that's really the angle of this. Look at the way God has blessed this earth to be able to provide food for all the inhabitants, most of the inhabitants. We know that there are terrible drought places.
So, but what about for those who are not living in an area where they see fields like we do here?
They need a different psalm. Literally, it's such a weak answer.
So you wouldn't say that like this is, you could, it could be symbolic for other areas of increase.
It could
not
be.
Just in the fields.
It could be. The reason why I answered the way I did is so that I wouldn't first press this psalm into every area. I would say this was appropriate for a particular time period, a particular geographic location.
Yeah, very much.
But you're exactly right. But the problem is, now what do you have to do? The earth has yielded its increase. Okay, that was the image that this psalmist used. So which image are we going to use? You could go to another text and say, look at the lilies of the field, look at the flowers.
Profit margins of the small business, the increase of, I don't know, the family.
I was thinking of any place in Scripture where God promises to take care of his people.
So, but what about like, could Job not have looked out his window and seen symbolically drought, despair, and yet he was, we know from the backside of it, we know that he was blessed. Right. But he could not have looked out and seen the fields with full heads of grain. Because of his situation, like his family's gone, right? His,
all the hardship,
everything, the hardship. So,
right.
It feels to me like this is that's one way to look at the world, to see God's hand and his grace and say, God has been good and he has blessed. But that feels circumstantial to me.
It is.
and
Yeah.
not across the board and eat like, because the fields have produced increase, he is blessed. The fields have not produced increase, he is cursed.
But it could be that.
It could be.
Because of the prophets. So if
Yes.
if we were going to spend a lot of time on this, one thing I would say is the prophets are really clear on why the crops fail for Israel, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you put all this in bags that have holes in it, and so you put the grain in, but it just dumps out. So the prophets would be quick to say, this is not automatic. It depends on your relationship with God. This is why the connection with Psalm 1 is so important, by the way.
I was just thinking that.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
No, go ahead.
Because, all of us together, we're having a conversation about how to read the Psalms. And so of all the words, God, the title last time came from 6 and 7. God, our God shall bless us. God shall bless us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that language is reminiscent of Psalm 1:1.
Yeah.
Blessed is the man.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the blessing of God is tied to our relationship with him. And so we go back to Psalm 1. Who is that blessed person? Now it doesn't matter whether the crops are there or not.
Right.
That blessing of God is going to be there, and God will be faithful. This particular psalm, though, just makes, and I think I used the word, this is empirical observation. The psalmist says, look, do you see that out there? Do you see Brubaker Field?
Mm-hmm.
That's giving you confidence that God will bless his people. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that God created an earth like this. Mm-hmm. So it's actually, and I appreciate you bringing this up. If you happen to be, and Jonathan's been using the term like sort of a figurative drought or a metaphorical drought. If that's true of you today, one of the greatest ways to gain confidence is to realize that what you're going through actually is temporary, that more of what's in store for you is a harvest field full of corn. Mm-hmm. That's probably a better theological way for us to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why these questions are really helpful, because, when we spend a few minutes on these Psalms, and that's all we can do on a Sunday, but there's so much more that you can do when you start to think about, wow. But that was the oddest of breaks. Verse 6 was tough.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure.
It just doesn't read. It doesn't read clearly like, oh yeah, I see how you got from 5 to 6. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. I mean, I really had to think that through. Like, what is he doing there? Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple. See that observation? That's the sign that God has great things in store for us.
Yeah, and that's really what the psalm was getting at. Asking God to bless us so that his name and reputation are really what's praised and lifted up.
Exactly. And we really didn't touch on it, but a lot of the comments that I heard afterwards were, I'm really glad that we learned together that God blesses us because we're supposed to spread that blessing all over the world. Israel was supposed to do it.
Yeah. It was a great reading of Genesis 12.
Yep. They failed to do it. We pick up the responsibility in the church age, and we run with this gospel all over the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
All right. I'm going to keep praying for blessing.
Yeah, so we can pass it on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, we knocked some rust off.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
All right, good. Well, listen, let me knock some other rust off here.
Okay.
If you have any questions, please email those questions into podcast@cbcmj.com. I will be happy to answer them.
Especially the questions that are trying to push that preaching portion beyond Sunday. How do we put this text into practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's what this is all about. Taking the Sunday sermon on Sundays, meditating on it throughout the week. And this podcast usually will come out on Wednesday mornings, so that it's a midweek kind of refresher. And actually, I'm glad to be back in the Psalms again. We missed it for a while. You promised, by the way, I do remember this, that we would be done with the Psalms before Chase graduates high school.
From college, did you say? Or grad school, or his PhD? Or
that was his question. Are we going to be done with this before I graduate high school? And Randy said yes.
What year is he in?
He's in 8th grade. So
my!
He's not in high school yet.
Oh my goodness!
But anyway, no, it's good to be back in the Psalms. I say that because just this rhythm, this weekly rhythm, and I have missed this. this time with Randall. So anyway, thanks for joining us. And yeah, we'll get back into a rhythm here weekly, Lord willing, and keep coming at you with bad jokes and decent, hopefully good theology. Okay. All right. Love you guys. See ya. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode. And remember, our Sunday sermons are meant to lead us to a life of worship beyond Sunday.